there we go. Okay. Hey, everyone. My name is Jen Senhaji. I work at MakerGrowth. MakerGrowth is actually a core unit working under MakerDAO. So for anybody that's not familiar with MakerDAO, MakerDAO is one of the original DeFi protocols built on Ethereum that allows anyone to permissionlessly, oops, I'm going backwards, permissionlessly lock up collateral and generate a loan against that in DAI, our decentralized stablecoin. So as I mentioned, I work at MakerGrowth and at the Maker Foundation. A little history on that is back in 2015, one of the co-founders, Rune Christensen, along with his technical co-founder, had been really into the Bitcoin community and loved the technology. And after some experiences with the volatility, came to the conclusion that for this stuff to scale, we really need stability, right? So the idea of a stable coin, a decentralized stable coin that was known as DAI was born. And the interesting thing was that this kind of origin was actually in the form of a DAO, right? I don't think people were really calling it a DAO then, but it was essentially a community of people that really liked this idea, like the concept of this decentralized technology, creating a stable coin. And so there was a lot of this early community involvement and development and enthusiasm about bringing this concept to life. So then it moved into actually a foundation. So the foundation, which bootstrapped the protocol for almost 3 years. So I actually joined the Maker Foundation in 2018, and it was a foundation. So what that meant was that there was a strategic kind of roadmap for bootstrapping this protocol and eventually making it a DAO, right? So the goal was always for it to be a living, breathing DAO. But as we know, and as we could see throughout the landscape of a lot of protocols, you often need to have a team that is coordinated and working towards specific goals in more of a centralized way, you can say. So the foundation served the purpose of really getting the protocol to a point where I'm not sure what's going on with this slide, but there's definitely more here. Where are we going? Let's see. Nope. OK, sorry, guys. Hold on. Oh, here we go. All right, it was a little glitchy. So the idea within OK, thank you. The idea with the foundation was to hire teams, developers, who can work on the protocol, build the smart contracts, build the security, and really make the protocol usable and safe and secure to a point that it was able to be handed over to the Maker community. So the foundation's goal was really to kind of help with initiatives like business development, which is where I worked, and through my current role at MakerGrowth is the same real mission, is to onboard DAI across all the applications and distribution channels and allow people to interact with it. So after a period of these past 3 years, we started to reach the point where the technology, the scale, the adoption was at a point where we could seriously consider the dissolution of the foundation and handing it entirely over to the community. Just a point on that is, still doesn't want to work. So anyway, so the point on this is, we had to define as a foundation what the goals were for decentralized governance. And so there was really 5 pillars that were defined. And so those being scientific governance, so proposing ideas based on facts. Because as you could imagine, once there's no formal, foundation setting strategy and saying these are the things we should be doing, you have to rely on individuals who you don't know as community members to think about the questions that are important and have answers to them accordingly. So scientific governance is really a major pillar for the way decentralized governance works. So it's asking the ideas and having solutions based on facts. Another pillar was serving the underserved, always keeping in mind that, this isn't about, speculation and, ways to get rich quick, right? Like the idea of decentralization, which the founders really cared about, was making, providing access to anyone, regardless of where you are, how much money you have, to be able to be financially independent and use tools that don't seek permission by somebody that may deem you as a user not a fit, right? So always having in the back of the mind, why are we doing this in a big picture? And then, sustainable finance, the part about that is, to stay around, you do need to create revenue. So understanding how this protocol will remain profitable and, what are the things that what kind of product iterations, what types of collaterals that are accepted are going to be the optimal to generate revenue for the protocol. So then ultimately driving DAI adoption. As I mentioned, from a BD standpoint, we spent a lot of time over the last 3 years developing in each major market and emerging markets on and off ramps to DAI. Use cases for DAI, providing people with ways that they could bank themselves, and really making DAI accessible. So this year is the year that the decentralization really came true. So back in July, the foundation formally dissolved, and now there is no BD team that I used to work on. There's no marketing team, there's no legal team. Everything is essentially the DAO and these what we call core units, which are funded by the DAO. So right now, because there's still a lot of work to be done, and in order to continue to scale the Maker ecosystem, you have to have support systems in place to continue driving DAI adoption and all of the things mentioned before. There are now ways where individuals can propose their work to the DAO. You actually, submit a formal application in the Maker forums called MIPS, Maker Improvement Proposals, and you outline what is it that you are going to be doing to ultimately support the DAO and Maker in some capacity. So there's currently about, I think, 10 core units that have been onboarded and approved. So just kind of a side note, so you propose your idea, and then that goes through a whole governance process. So every decision, whether it's technical, really anything, any state change to the protocol has to be voted on by the community. So there's a governance process that takes place where it starts with a proposal, and then there's community feedback, so people in the forums, which is kind of like the lifeblood of the Maker community. They share their ideas, they like something, they don't think it's a good idea. The real debate and important discussions on a proposed idea take place in the forums. And then it moves into a signal poll, which is kind of a way to test the sentiment of that proposed idea. Based on that, if it's positive, that moves to another poll, which is a green light poll. And ultimately, if it continues to get support, it will move to an executive vote, which is on chain, and anything that passes in an executive vote then becomes codified. So all of these different core units, like I mentioned, Maker Growth, which is responsible for the growth of the platform in terms of business development. Protocol engineering is also a core unit. Risk is a very important core unit. They're all important, but that one's particularly important. What we called real-world finance, which is a team that's working on onboarding real-world assets. And and governance-related core units, and a couple others. So right now, that may sound like a lot, but there is really no limit to the amount of core units that could be kind of come to life or proposed, right? I mean, ultimately, there's a budget. The DAO has a budget, and if there's an idea that seems like it's going to be very beneficial to the DAO, I would recommend anybody to propose your idea and see how it moves along. So those are the core unit frameworks. Then the other aspect to really decentralizing fully is the Maker Foundation returned 84,000 MKR, so that's now in the hands of the DAO. And then in July, the foundation fully dissolved. So where that leaves us today is really this true DAO, which I say, and I have a lot of pride saying that Maker went through this evolution of kind of being a DAO to being a foundation, and really coming to the end result that was always the goal of being this DAO and community-driven protocol. So right now, we are here, and the last few months have been really exciting because although there's been a lot of similarities in the way we're doing things from smart contracts and BD, we have a lot more coordination across all the different core units and the community directly. So we can iterate on ideas, get feedback, gain consensus, and launch things in ways we really couldn't before. So it's been super exciting. So what about growth? In the last year, so I think it was last May, I want to say, there was only 300 million DAI in circulation. Today, there's 6.5 billion, last time I checked a couple days ago. So massive amount of DAI minting and usage across the ecosystem. There's 12.4 billion in total value locked. DAI, or the Maker protocol, is integrated across over 1,000 different, what we call partner integrations. So looking at exchanges, applications, anywhere that DAI can be used. We're really putting a focus on making sure DAI is available where everybody wants to use it and where it's easiest and most cost-effective to be used in any given moment. So DAI is on pretty much most layer 2s right now, and we're putting a focus on the Maker Growth team to really make sure there's the DAI liquidity there. So our view is that DAI can be used anywhere. It doesn't have to necessarily always be on ETH layer 1. So it's exciting to see DAI kind of thrive in all these other environments. Real-world assets. This also is something that has been, kind of aspired to launch for the past few years and has come to life. So we launched the first real-world asset as collateral back in April. So what that means is that traditional companies, non-crypto-based companies who have a need for financing can look at the Maker protocol for that. So for example, one of the first ones that we did is a company called New Silver, which is an asset originator. They provide loans to commercial developers who are doing fix and flip types of properties. So for them, they found accessing credit via DAI in the Maker protocol favorable to seeking it in the traditional finance options. So there's two ways that we can do real-world finances. Right now, there's two different frameworks. Actually, I have another slide on that, so I'll go into that in a minute. So real-world assets were a big thing, and then new product features. So we launched something called the PEG stability mechanism. Oh, there it is. This year, actually it was last year, but we've expanded it quite a bit this year. So the PSM, as we refer to it, is a special type of Maker Vault that allows users to swap one-to-one DAI for another stablecoin right now. So the two stablecoins that are in there are USDC and Pax's USDP. So those two stablecoins have to be approved by Maker governance. There could be other ones voted in the future, but right now those are the two that are there. And what's really interesting about this is that it allows Vault users to be able to always have access to DAI. So if there's like a major market crash or a day of a lot of volatility, and you have a vault open, and you want to close that out, and you're finding maybe DAI is trending above $1 slightly or below $1. I guess you wouldn't mind if it was below $1 or above $1 that day. You could always go to the PSM, and if you have either USDC or USDP, you could swap right away for DAI. So it has this additional way to always access DAI. And it's also a really interesting opportunity for arbitraging the different prices between the stable coins. So this has helped us. The main goal for this was always to keep DAI pegged to $1. So this has been a really good tool for peg stability, and it's also a part of what drives revenue for the protocol, because there's actually a fee in for swapping that is identified as protocol revenue. So another product iteration we're working on, it's not live yet, but the community is actively discussing it, is the idea of institutional vaults. And simply what that means is having different parameters based on larger vault users. So right now, anybody can access a vault if there's a particular collateral type accepted that you want to use. All the fees associated to it are the same for everybody using it. Some of our partners who are long-term vault holders and really use vaults as part of their business operations express the need for having a little bit more predictable terms if they were to be generating much more significant sized DAI generation. So right now we're slowly getting to the point of understanding what is the best way to balance the ethos of the Maker protocol with providing more predictable terms to certain businesses. So you can keep your eyes out for that. That should be coming, I would say, in the next couple months. And then going back to real-world assets, this is really a critical thing as to how DAI is scaled to multi-billions, right? And it's also really important for the security of the Maker protocol, because the real-world assets, again, being these traditional types of loans that are able to use the protocol for better borrowing rates, are not limited to DeFi. So this gives us a way where we can always have a diversified collateral pool of assets, and also be able to scale DAI, continue to scale DAI into the many billions. So you might ask, well, this doesn't sound very decentralized. You're bringing in traditional companies. What does that mean? So the idea is we always, decentralized governance is always there. So there's two different companies that are helping to onboard real-world assets. There is the real-world assets core unit team that works for the DAO, and they can source asset originators and identify the types of assets that they would want to use as collateral to generate DAI. But that always still goes through the same rigor that onboarding crypto collateral would go through. So understanding what is the risk, how much would we be comfortable allowing to be generated off of this collateral, so the debt ceiling, what would be the right interest, the stability fee for this asset, and making sure all of those things are balanced with the overall risk profile and collateral types of the protocol. So, so it still stays very much in the hands of the maker community, because ultimately any real world asset that is onboarded has got to go through a voting process. So MKR holders signal their support for doing this or not. So there's not some person saying, we're just going to add this real world asset because this is a new product feature. It always goes through the community in a decentralized process. And then something exciting to tease out here at Messari, a new product release we have coming up is, this thing is going to create a lot more suspense. Oh, there you go. OK. So we are going to be launching sometime, the community, rather, is going to be launching sometime in mid-October a product feature called the direct deposit module we're referencing as a D3M. And this is something that actually the Aave team proposed in the community, which is really cool, and just, again, is a great example of you have an idea, go to the Maker forums, which is the community hub, and propose your ideas. It will go through a process, and if it's something that the community wants to support, it will come to life. So Stani actually proposed this in the forums. And the idea was to have DAI minting directly to Aave with a target maximum price. So there'd be some idea of what that DAI going into Aave would be, and have a way for Aave users to have more predictability in the rates for borrowing or supplying DAI. So this also helps alleviate liquidity shortage pressures. So when there's times where people are trying to get their hands on stable coins, in particular DAI, this is a way we can help alleviate this. So it's essentially a special type of vault that will be like piped directly into Aave's platform and be providing DAI liquidity. This is going to be backed by a DAI, so there is always something needs to be backing the DAI that's generated. So a DAI will be backing that. Yeah, so this is something that we actually expect to see probably on other venues, secondary venues, and this will be coming out sometime mid-October. So keep your eyes peeled for that. I think that covers it for me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jen. I had a lot of questions jotted down, but I think we're running out of time, so we'll save that for Twitter. But yeah, thank you so much, Jen. I will pass it on to the next session.